Well, now here's Bob Brown's address to the New South Wales Greens election campaign launch today.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Michael, for your welcome. My fellow speakers, my fellow Greens MPs, my wonderful comrades as candidates in this New South Wales election. I may be from Tasmania, but I am born and bred here in New South Wales, and it is with enormous pride that I come to this launch today, where the Greens are going to cull a record vote from an electorate which more than ever before has confidence in the Greens as the real alternative for their vote as New South Wales moves out of the last century with the big parties into the 21st century with the Greens. Now, Jamie said outside, we were having our picture taken, that we're hot. Jamie, the Greens are hot. And not only that, we're also cool. I get that from so many young people around this country, not least this state. And why is that? Well, because they see that we are a responsible party with vision, with a care for what they are going to inherit as a result of our policies now. The big parties are shackled by 3-4-year vision. The Greens are looking at the world, the country, the state, the city. Our children and grandchildren will inherit. They too are our constituency. That's the difference between us and Labor and us and the COAL coalition. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I've just listened to two of our mayors in New South Wales talking about the governance in their municipalities. Jamie, thank you for the tip about cost-free FOI. I will take that to the national parliament, where ordinary citizens too should have access to the oldest FOI, freedom of information legislation in the nation, brought in under the Fraser government at national level. But let me say a word or two about economic governance at national level, because it is always intertwined with state and local level. And for that majority which the polls are showing may vote for the coalition on the 26th, a word of caution, because they are shackled to the same policy outlook as the Abbott opposition in the federal parliament. That is the opposition which voted against the economic stimulus, $43 billion, to save this country, to save thousands of small businesses, to save 600,000 jobs, which would otherwise have been lost in a recession, which the Greens gave their vote to keep this country away from. With the Liberals' recession and loss of 600,000 jobs, with the Greens backing the Rudd package, it was one of the only countries, like countries in the developed world, that stayed out of recession. And then, of course, along came the mining tax, and Treasury recommended that this nation get a tax onto the super profits of the big mining corporations. And the only ones left standing backing Treasury are the Greens. What Tony Abbott's prescription, and therefore Mr O'Farrell's prescription, is to not charge them a cent for those windfall profits. Rio Tinto, which just announced a $14.5 billion profit, 70% to be exported overseas, won't pay $1 under the Abbott-O'Farrell prescription. They will $145 billion lost to the public purse over the next 10 years. Under the Gillard-Ferguson-Swan rollback, part negotiated by Rio Tinto, there'll be $100 billion less over the next 10 years. That's $10 billion less each year than the Treasury formula: less for schools, less for hospitals, less for police, less for emergency services, less for the environment. And the biggest loser, under the failure of the big parties in the nation's capital, is New South Wales. And then we move to the carbon price, where Tony Abbott says a great big new tax. Well, he has recently gone from saying that climate change is crap to accepting it's human-induced. Within a short time, he's gone from crap to clap when it comes to recognising climate change being caused by greenhouse gas emissions. What's he going to do? Well, his prescription is to take the money off you, the taxpayers, more from New South Wales than anywhere else, because that's the configuration of population. He wants to take $30 billion in the next 10 years. That's the cost estimates coming from Treasury, and give it to the big polluters. Not a tax, but it's a robbing of the taxpayer's purse. What's the difference? And it is economically the most expensive way to tackle climate change. There is no economist he's been able to trot out who will support that path because it's the most expensive. The big polluters like it because it takes off households and gives to the big corporations. That's the Abbott-O'Farrell prescription. And ladies and gentlemen, by the year 2020, that will cost every household in New South Wales $720 more in paying for power. That's the Abbott-O'Farrell prescription. When it comes to what the Greens with the Gillard government and the independents, both of whom are on the committee are from New South Wales, are working to, it is a cheaper prescription. We haven't yet finished our deliberation because the best economic, environmental, business and community input is being sought over these months. What it will be is much cheaper than the Abbott-O'Farrell prescription. But what it won't be is a transfer of money from average households to the big polluters. Our prescription is quite the reverse. If you pollute, you pay. If you're a householder, you get compensated. Now, I ask the voters of New South Wales, who do you prefer? Feather bedding of the big corporations who pollute by the coalition, or support to householders from money taken from the polluters under the prescription being worked up in Canberra with the Gillard government, the Greens and the Independents? I've got a couple of questions for Mr O'Farrell. You see, when it gets down to it, I've got a sticker on my car which says, a little bit quizzically, "I'm not a greenie, but." Now, I ask that question because that's the most common question I get asked. People come up and say, "I'm not a question, but I want to support the environment." The question here is, what is an O'Farrell government going to do to the environment? We've already seen across the border a much more, Jan Barham pointed out, a much more moderate coalition regime bring 400 cattle into the delicate alpine grazing national parks of Australia with no scientific study, saying they'll follow up that later. How many cattle are you going to bring into Kosciuszko National Park, Mr O'Farrell? And when we look at the river red gums protected by the current government, supported by the Greens, in the state parliament up in Macquarie Street, this opposition, about to become this government, said they would continue to fight against protection of those river redwoods all the way down the line. So is the first announcement from this government going to be a turnaround of the protection for these river redwoods, the biggest estate of river redwoods in the world, to allow back in the chainsaws and bulldozers as was happening before? These are real questions. These are warranting an answer before this election. But I want to say, whatever people are thinking at the moment, as we go to March the 26th, we Greens are here to offer the economically responsible, the environmentally thoughtful, the small business friendly, the innovation support. Look at the solar thermal plant for New South Wales. What a great idea, not just for New South Wales, but for rural and regional New South Wales. What a great idea that the Greens have New South Wales catch up with Queensland in delivery of dental care. What a great idea that the Greens want New South Wales to catch up with most of the equivalent rest of the world in delivering preschool education. And that's a bank which has many more great ideas. Yesterday, following the Tea Party promoted, and I think 2GB promoted, idea that there should be a revolt against the federal government, 400 people turned outside Julia Gillard's office in Melbourne. But down the road, thanks to Get Up, people who are concerned about the future and who want a climate price turned out. 8,000 people turned out. That's the prescription for New South Wales. New South Wales, after years of languid and community disappointing governance, is on the move. The worst thing that can happen on Saturday week is for a government from the coalition taking control of the upper house. I saw that with the Howard government. They brought in work choices. They sold off Telstra. They took power away from the parliament and the executive did what it wants. Ladies and gentlemen, New South Wales shouldn't emulate that Howard government misgovernance, which was so unpopular it led to the exit of the Howard government itself. Don't wait 4 years for that. It is extremely important that we see Greens in both houses of parliament and in the balance in the upper house. Fantastic policies. Fantastic campaign. Very, very responsible, thoughtful, sensible, well thought out candidates. Macquarie Street is about to be greened up. New South Wales is about to have a smile on its face. We are about to put New South Wales into the vanguard of 21st century development rather than languishing back there in the last century. This is an exciting time. In the next 13 days or so, give what you can to this campaign. Be there on Saturday the 26th. Vote early. Vote Green. Vote Green in the lower house. Vote Green in the upper house. And the next New South Wales Parliament will make New South Wales the state of excitement. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope on Sunday week we all wake up here in a state of excitement. Vote Green. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
There you go. That's Greens leader and self-confessed cool politician, Senator Bob Brown, speaking at the New South Wales Greens election campaign launched earlier today in Sydney.